Welcome to Corner of the Galaxy, the show that talks 100% LA Galaxy soccer. We're glad you could join us. Now it's time to sit back and relax as your hosts navigate through the twisting, turning, but never boring world of the five-time MLS Cup champion, LA Galaxy. And now, here are your hosts, Josh Guesman and Wendy Thomas.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Josh Guesman, Miss Wendy Thomas with you. Glad to be with you here on a Thursday night, just 2 days before the LA Galaxy will take on the Philadelphia Union in what might be two of the most disappointing teams in Major League Soccer facing off against each other. And I don't know that it could be any more interesting whenever the two teams are that bad. And it's almost like a relegation battle, if there was the actual payoff of relegation, which there isn't. It's fascinating to me, and I'm glad we get to talk some LA Galaxy soccer with everybody. A good show tonight. Obviously going to talk about the LA Galaxy's 3-0 loss to Seattle. Going to take a look at that Philadelphia game coming up on Saturday, and we have player salaries and LA Galaxy news and everything else in between. So a lot of stuff to get to, but before we do any of that, let's check in with Miss Wendy Thomas. Wendy, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Josh. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm enjoying the heck out of this season so far because, as I said just before we started, I've never seen a dumpster fire or a train wreck up close, and I'm getting a front row seat for all of it. And maybe it's a little macabre, but I'm looking at the accident on the other side of the freeway as I'm driving. I'm slowing everybody down that are behind me, and if that's wrong, I don't know that I want to be right.
Well, it's kind of like professional wrestling. On some level, you know that it's wrong, but there's sort of a lot of fans to it, you know?
That's it. Exactly. What a wonderful thing to do. How's everything going for you? Recovered after the LA Galaxy's wonderful game they played on Sunday?
I am fully recovered. I haven't really been angry since the first game because, as you recall, I was very angry after the first game or show after that. And ever since then, I've been very placid about everything that's happened because as I told you before we went on air, I said to Josh, I said, I feel like Cassandra. And he said, I don't know what Cassandra is. And I said, Cassandra was the daughter of King Priam and Queen Hecuba. And when, according to myth, Apollo attempted to seduce her, she refused him. And he inflicted a curse on her that he would give her the power of prophecy, but no one would ever believe what she said. And in a way, I feel like Cassandra because I've been saying for a long time, I don't understand why Kurt Onalfo was hired. He had a losing record. He's never been successful as a coach. And I maintain that the first half of the LA Galaxy season is going to be very painful. And I think that is going to come to pass. And I see no evidence from what happened on Friday that I am wrong. But I still have doubts that anyone believes what I say.
No, I think most people believe what you say at this point. I think the interesting thing after the 3-0 loss is that I was one who sort of persisted and insisted that Kurt Onalfo would be given a long leash. That even if his results weren't coming,
we're poor.
Yeah,
right?
we're poor. That the LA Galaxy were still going to stick with him because this was their guy, the whole thing. I will tell you that I get the distinct feeling, and I have talked to a lot of people behind the scenes at LA Galaxy, and I've had people reach out and talk to me. I get the feeling that they would be okay with losing. All right, they would understand that because they think that they're doing a mission here. They're trying to prove something that youth and the way that they're building is the right way to do it. So they would be okay with the poor results, Wendy. But I'm not sure they could handle what happened on Saturday, which was a team that was non-competitive from the opening whistle. Unlike any of the other LA Galaxy games where they showed, moments of, this team might actually be able to put something together. Now, they weren't very long moments, but there was something there. But against Seattle, against one of their, I will say, one of their rivals and maybe one of their bigger rivals. You can argue if San Jose is bigger, but regardless, those two are sort of right next to each other. Seattle Sounders in the last two games they played against the LA Galaxy, both at StubHub Center, have now scored 7 goals, and they've outscored the Galaxy 7-2.
Yeah, I think there's 3 different yet related problems that are facing the Galaxy and MLS right now. The first pressing problem, which is very immediate, is the fact that Kurt Onalfo has not demonstrated that he's a good coach. And perhaps more seriously, I think there's a reasonable probability that he's lost the locker room.
That's the big one.
And right, so there's a real question as to how you proceed in a circumstance like this, because in professional sports, it's even if a coach is talented, it's very difficult to see how you move forward when the players will not listen to the coach.
Right.
That's an immediate problem. The second problem, which is related, is let's say that you do dispose of Kurt Onalfo, that they make him a scapegoat for poor results if we continue to lose and fare poorly, say, for the first half of the season.
Right.
My problem with that is if you do not address an underlying concern, which is the manner in which the front office is currently making its human resources decisions.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, Kevin Hartman was named the head of the LA Galaxy's Girls Academy. We talked about that briefly last week, right?
Right.
Kevin Hartman has no experience coaching girls.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. This is,
Okay.
we brought that up even last week. Yep, you're right.
Right. So why has he just been put in charge of a girls' academy?
No, the whole creation of the Girls Academy, which, by the way, Scott French at 442, the U.S. branch of that, Scott French wrote an article for 442 talking about the L.A. Galaxy's Girls Academy and perhaps a long-term plan for the L.A. Galaxy, except that it goes in and he talks to Chris Klein and he does all the things. And when you and I were saying if they were going to build an NWSL team, it would make sense, right? They may be using this as sort of testing the waters with that a little bit. But there's still no actual plan to put an NWSL team at StubHub Center, and therefore there is no place for those girls who are developed in the academies to go right now. So
my point is that if this was a publicly held corporation, and the CEO was doing things like saying, I'm going to make my old college roommate our accountant, or I'm going to make my brother-in-law the chief technology officer, then the shareholders would hold a no confidence vote and remove the board, because there's certain underlying principles that serve as a foundation for competent management. And among those would be things like when you perform an audit, you try and comply with GAAP principles, generally accepted accounting principles. Another is that when you make human resources decisions, when you hire people for positions of importance, that you have to have as a basis for retaining them that they have been successful, that they have demonstrated competencies, that they have skills in the areas necessary to be a success in that job, that they have a track record and platform for success, and that everything is at least in some way merit-based.
Right.
And I think that if Kurt Onalfo is fired, but the LA Galaxy and Chris Klein decide, well, I'll just hire this other guy who used to play for the LA Galaxy as the new coach, then you're not going to remediate the concerns that are posed by our current situation, which is that the Galaxy is staffing its offices by just hiring any old person to fill whatever job is open. And I don't know I think that in the case of Kurt Onalfo, I suspect what happened was that when Bruce Arena left, he said to Dan Beckerman or whoever else's ear he had,
right,
listen, Kurt is ready for this job. He can do it. I trust him, because Bruce Arena is a loyalty guy. He's a complete loyalty guy. Dave Sarachan has coached for him since he was at UVA. That's 30 years.
Right.
That demonstrates how much people who show loyalty to Bruce receive appreciation from him. And yet, while that's a laudable characteristic in a human being to show loyalty to those who support you, to want Kurt to succeed, the impact is going to be borne by the fans if that loyalty is misplaced or if it overlooks deficiencies in a person's competence. So, for example, these guys have all worked together and they know each other and they're friends with one another. And that might be great for working together. It might be so fun to hang out with your best friends and to hire them for all the top positions in this company. The people who suffer from that are not people who are so you don't feel the impact of your decision making. but it is there. It's like when people, when people say, well, what's the harm if they would, like I work in finance, I do securities regulation, litigation. And when people say, well, what's the harm with Goldman Sachs having a close relationship to the SEC? Well, there's enormous infrastructural harm. There's huge problems with institutional harm. And, investors suffer. But if you don't know investors, that pain is not present to you. When I was at the game on Saturday, at halftime, I went into the bathroom and there was a 6-year-old girl and she was crying about how bad the LA Galaxy are.
I felt the same way. I understand that.
But the impact is on the fans, and people like Chris Klein and Pete Byanis and Dan Beckerman, they are stewards of an investment that Phil Ann Schultz made in this LA Galaxy. And that to be good faith stewards, they need to respect the fact that they can't make decisions based on things like who they have personal relationships with or who they like or anything like that. In order to be a professional, one of the realizations that you have to come to is that decisions have to be made based on empirical evidence and not based on your feelings. And I feel like Bruce Arena, as much as he is a loyalty person and as much as that reflects positive things about him as a person, if this organization is going to be successful, when they hire a coach, they need to look at things like whether a coach has a demonstrated record of success, whether they have basic management capabilities in terms of their ability to get people who want to follow them, to manage professionals, all these intangibles which a coach needs to have. And that's a major problem with what will happen if we replace Kurt Onalfo but don't otherwise alter structural problems within the organization.
Well, somebody came up to me and said, after the 3-0 loss, they said, realistically, what could happen here? And I said, well, I think that, after seeing the way the players reacted and, the complete, I've said it, the LA Galaxy were so tactically naive in this game. I think everybody sort of predicted exactly how the Seattle was going to attack LA, and apparently, Kurt Onalfo was just not paying any attention to that whatsoever. Didn't want to look at that, and didn't want to pay any attention. You knew that they were going to target Nathan Smith, and not only did they target Nathan Smith, but by overloading that side, they also went behind the guy who has scored most of the goals and actually made him play back a little bit, was Alessandrini. It was very smart by Brian Schmetzer and the Seattle Sounders. It was an obvious adjustment to what the LA Galaxy have portrayed so far this season. And you and I talked about it. If Alessandrini is not scoring and nobody else is scoring, it's going to be easy to game plan for him in terms of taking him out of the game. And that's what Seattle did in this, and it was done to perfection. I mean, realistically, Philadelphia should look at what happened and just copy it because Onalfo's solution in this particular case was to bring Baggio Husidic into the game and take both. So you had the one guy. This was my suggested solution just to start with: is switch Alessandrini and Emma Boateng. Let Boateng, who actually plays some defense and has some speed, let him go up against the speedy Morris on that side and let him sit back a little more, and that would free up Alessandrini on the side where Ashley Cole is to backstop Alessandrini a little bit better, and you'd still get to keep the speed of Boateng, who can still help you in the offensive side. Yes, you would be hurting Boateng because he'd need to cut inside in order to make some crosses and stuff, but, I mean, to me, that's a better solution than to just take Baggio Husidic and throw him into the center. And I thought that not only was it a panic move, right? Because anytime you make a sub in the first half, Wendy, it's a panic move, as if it's not for injury. And that was not for an injury to Emmanuel Boateng. There was nothing wrong with him, as far as we've been told. And Kurt Onalfo had the chance to answer that question in the postgame of why he made that substitution. And if there was anything wrong with Boateng, and the reason that I'm saying this is I did get told perhaps that Emma Boateng had been sick earlier in the week. All right. And this is from somebody who could know. But when given the chance to tell that story, which would have made, at least in my mind, maybe a little more sense, or you would at least have a better underlying reason than throwing Baggio in the center and hoping that you're going to get, not overrun as much in the midfield, which Kurt Onalfo seems to think actually worked, which I didn't see it work. So
I thought that was hilarious when he spoke. He said in the conference, after the press conference, he's like, and it worked actually perfectly. I was like, oh man!
I actually, I have that.
I almost feel bad for you.
I have that audio somewhere. We played it on the Monday show, but everybody can go back out and listen to it. It was just, it's bad. The LA Galaxy again in this game, they have been at times competitive in every single game, Wendy. We talked about that. And, there was almost times where you'd look at some of the passing and you were like, hey, that's not bad. I like that. Want to see more of it. Let's see if, that's something to build on. There is nothing to build on in this game. And anybody who says, including all the LA Galaxy players and coaches, who say in the second half of this game that they played better, all right, the reason that they played even just maybe a little bit better had nothing to do with the LA Galaxy and everything to do with the Seattle Sounders going, three's enough.
Seattle is up 3-0. What do you think? I mean, they were up 3 goals. They were playing away. What did you think they were going to do in the second half?
No, it was they sat back, they defended, they did everything. The interesting stuff comes in here. I already sort of gave you a little bit of the Seattle Sounders saying that they've outscored the LA Galaxy 7-2 in the last 2 games, that they've played at StubHub Center. Kevin and I were talking, and he says, the fortress that is StubHub Center is in ruins right now. Okay, the LA Galaxy have lost 3 of their first 4 home games. They lost 3 home games in all of 2015 and 2016 combined.
Yes.
If they lose another game, Wendy, either at home or on the road, they will have matched their total losses for last year.
See, but I spoke to someone who said, and I think he has a good faith reason to believe this is true, that Chris Klein will never be fired because he is so well liked. Because Chris Klein, he's like an unbelievably likable guy. He's a good-looking guy. He has a big, bright smile, and he's super friendly. And I think that he's either just genuinely super nice to his higher-ups, or potentially you could characterize it as obsequious. And so because I'm sure they naturally love people who are great to them, are not going to fire him. It's
my concern, and somebody kicked this around, and it's like, well, okay, let's say they fire Cardinalfo. Let's say the LA Galaxy lose on Saturday. All right, this is a hypothesis that's going around, by the way.
Yeah, he was to Philadelphia, who has not won a game in a year.
Right, and so there has to be a reaction to that. At least people are thinking there has to be, and if there is, that they fire Cardinalfo. And then, as they do their coaching search, perhaps this time they actually do a real one. They actually talk to people, and as that plays out, that Pete Vianis takes over as interim coach. Because why not, right? And that scared me even more, because Arnolfo's going to take the fall for this, and he's going to be he's going to be to blame.
I can just feel it. He's going to be scapegoated.
I mean, we look at the blame pie, right? The blame pie is something the guys over at ESPN Radio came up with a while ago, and I think they stole it from somebody too. But the blame pie is, how much percentage of blame do you put to like each person, right? And so, like, if you're taking Chris Klein, Pete Vianis, and let's say I won't put Dan Beckerman in this. Let's just do let's do 4. 4 is
Why
good.
not do Dan Beckerman?
Okay, so
he's
Dan
always asleep at the wheel. He has nothing but ex-jocks running a multi-million-dollar organization. Why not put him in the pie?
And not only that, but he's done the same thing with the LA Kings too, if you've been paying attention to the Kings.
Yes, exactly. The LA Kings. It's this whole cost-cutting thing. It's like, now we're going to be very serious with respect to cost-cutting. Listen, when you value a business, one of the things that you take into consideration is, yes, what you're spending in terms of capital outflow. However, another thing that you value when you're trying to estimate what a business is worth is something called goodwill. Mm-hmm. And it's true that we are not spending a lot of money in terms of capital outflow because we've cut the cost of our salary roster. However, in terms of goodwill, the LA Galaxy is burning money at an alarming rate.
Oh, it's in flames. It's incinerating right now. But okay, so we'll play the blame pie then, and you can go first, and we'll see if maybe we disagree. But so you have 4 people. Okay, you have Dan Beckerman. You have Chris Klein, you have Pete Vianis, and you have Kurt Arnolfo. There's your blame pie. Has to equal 100%.
Uh-huh.
So who gets what percentage for you?
So I would say that Chris Klein gets 50%.
Oh, I like it. All right. CK gets 50%.
I would say Dan Beckerman gets 25%.
All right. DB?
I would say Kurt Arnolfo gets 20%.
Mm-hmm.
And Pete Vianis gets the remaining
10% or 5%. Yeah, 5%. Okay. I don't think I'm gonna let Vianis off the hook that easily.
I don't know what he does, if anything.
Well, he is the general manager. Technically speaking, all of the players that were brought in
Chris Klein was. I mean, he hired Pete Vianis and Kurt Arnolfo.
Yes, he did. Hey, I'm not letting him like Klein off the hook. I'm just saying Vianis deserves more.
What I'm saying is that the underlying. It's a symptom to say that, Kurt Arnolfo is the problem, because ultimately this is a structural problem with respect to people just being hired for jobs based on nothing. I mean, we have all these really unbelievably dim-witted men just making decisions based on who they used to play with.
I mean, yes, there is something to that. I absolutely agree with you. I'm not going to say that, that's not a thing. But, I'm just saying that in my opinion, I think Dan Beckerman has sort of Dan Beckerman replaced Tim Leiweke, right? We all know that that's sort
Tim
of
Leiweke, right?
Yeah.
Where is Tim Leiweke?
I think Miami. He's down with Miami right now. I think Miami FC, or he's consulting with them or something like that.
The Beckham United?
Yeah, and that's actually picking up steam right now. That could actually go through. So anyway, the whole Beckham deal and down in Miami. So we'll see if that actually happens. But yeah, so Uncle Tim Leiweke, was the guy who had his hands in everything. He was very hands-on manager. He'd be at the LA Galaxy front offices. He helped bring in David Beckham. He helped bring in, the big names whenever you think of all these things. Dan Beckerman isn't that guy.
Right. Dan Beckerman is quietly napping under his desk, maybe, or
I don't know. I think he definitely keeps himself busy with AEG and being the president of AEG and doing all that stuff. Right? I mean, he has a lot of. If you think about that, there's a ton of smaller.
But someone
divisions.
has to do the actual work of running the Galaxy. I mean, I think that this whole thing that Chris Klein is the president is like. He's like a pretend executive. There's no way that he actually makes decisions that a real CEO makes. I mean, he doesn't understand things like supply chain management. And,
I think he absolutely makes those decisions. I think if you think that Chris Klein isn't in charge of the LA Galaxy the way that Bruce Arena was in charge of the LA Galaxy, then I think that you're greatly discounting how much.
Someone comes to Chris Klein and say, "Hey, Chris, we need to change our workers' compensation policy from a claims-based policy to a period-based policy. But we want to know how that's going to impact the negotiations with the concessionaires that work through Cal State. What do you think we should do?"
Well,
you're saying that Chris Klein makes that decision?
I think Chris Klein finds the people who help him make that decision. Yes. Yeah, I think that's exactly. I mean, it's like any CEO. For the most part, you have CEOs that have, specialities in a lot of things, but you're going to rely on the people that you hire. And so in this particular case, Chris Klein is going to rely on Pete Vianis. He's going to rely on Jovan Karofsky. He's going to rely on Kurt Anolfo. But Pete Vianis put this team together. He is realistically in charge of who the LA Galaxy signed.
Like a month before they brought in these players.
Yeah, but
right?
No.
So they must have been identified beforehand.
I think, the LA Galaxy always has a list, and they're always working on their list, and they're always doing things. Remember, this plan apparently was even started whenever Bruce Arena was going to come back.
Right.
So, and that was in the summertime. So, yeah, there were certainly some things that had already been put in motion. But if you're looking at, if you want to complain about salaries and different things, you look at the general manager. The general manager is in charge of that stuff. The general manager is in charge of the business side of salaries and salary caps and player trades and player acquisitions. That's what the general manager does.
Okay, this brings me to this third problem.
Yes.
I said there's two problems.
Okay,
one, Kurt Anolfo, it's immediate problem. Two, Chris Klein, which is this structural decision-making problem. Three is a super structural problem, which is that within MLS, a lot of teams are run this way, which is that a coach or a person will demonstrate that they are incompetent in one position, and then they will leave that job only to be hired by another team.
That's incestuous throughout the soccer community, though.
Right. I'm saying that U.S. soccer and MLS there's a really peculiar pattern with respect to ex-athletes being put into positions that they have no business being in, which they're not qualified for. At least Kurt Anolfo is a coach. He has a coaching license. He did actually go through the process of learning how to be a coach.
Right.
When Chris Klein pretends to be an executive, he's relying on 20 years of having spent kick a ball. I mean, I don't know what he knows about finance, having to prepare profit and loss statements, giving, public relations, hiring decisions, accounting. I mean, all the various information technology, security at the StubHub Center, interacting with Cal State in terms of managing the logistics of game day. I mean, there's a litany of issues. I can't imagine that he has the experience that's necessary to actually be competent in all of those things, which means that Dan Beckerman has to be the person who's ultimately responsible.
Yeah, I think that he gets a ton of the blame. I think he gets a ton of the blame. I think Chris Klein, I'm almost like sitting here going, Kurt Anolfo plays the players he's given right now. I mean, it's not Bruce Arena. Bruce Arena went out and got his own players, and he played those players. So you could always, it's so much easier to blame whenever Bruce is here.
Bruce is one person is in charge of everything.
Basically, even though Chris Klein was president, you still understood that Bruce was sort of had his hands in everything, right? I mean, that's what everybody thinks. So when you look at this at the blame pie here, I think Chris Klein gets that 40%. I'm there. I'm just going to shift numbers around just a little bit. I think Dan Beckerman for me gets. I'll stick with your. I'll go with 20%.
25.
Yeah, I'll go with 20. Yeah.
Okay, 20.
So
All right.
I'll go with 20%. And then I want to. So let's see. I'm at 40 and 20. Okay, so I'm at 60. So I got 40 left. I'm going to say Analfo was 10 and Vianis is 30. All right.
Yeah, I mean, I could go with that. I mean, I know that Kurt Analfo is the one who is the most expendable from this crew,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, because everybody else is going to try to save their jobs, right? Isn't that?
That's the thing. I mean, ultimately, so listen, if you were making decisions rationally, you would say, listen, João Pedro has not played well, and not one single LA Galaxy game. A rational person would say, let's not start him. Let's start Rafa Garcia or Baggio Husidic or someone else.
Mm-hmm.
But if you are one of these three guys, then you have to explain to Phil Anschultz and Dan Beckerman why, in a cost-cutting move, you paid a $1.5 million transfer fee for this guy. And so I think instead of taking ownership of that decision, which is what professionals should do, they are going to continue to start him in the hopes that somehow that decision will bear fruit and that they will not be tagged with their own bad decision-making. I think it's really hard to say, like, listen, we made a mistake. This is not working out. We need to change the plan.
Yeah, and I don't know that is a capable thing. Listen, the Seattle game was horrible. I want to get some Brian Rowe audio.
Sure.
Just because I think that he hasn't.
Brian Rowe.
I consider
I don't blame him, by the way, for the goals. I do not.
No. I wrote an article about Brian Rowe coming back. He could go to a corner of the galaxy there where he said he was happy to be back. And somebody goes, he let in 3 goals. He's horrible. I'm like,
he was not.
Did you see any of those? I mean, like, there wasn't even a question after the game.
The Dempsey goal, first of all, the Dempsey was. He could not have stopped that.
No. I mean, Ashley Cole could have, Jossie Zardes, Emma Boateng, any of those guys who were right next to Clint Dempsey definitely could have stopped it. Other than that, no. Brian Rowe wasn't going to stop that. He wasn't going to stop the Ashley Cole one where it came in and Ashley Cole scored. So Ashley Cole did get on the board. I mean, we should be a little excited about that, I think.
He did get on the board, you guys.
That's right. He did score.
Against ourselves.
And then the Jordan Morris goal was the perfect example of Seattle's game plan, and it was executed flawlessly. If you are a neutral in this game and you want to pull something out of this,
well done, Seattle.
Seattle
really.
absolutely destroyed and picked apart the Galaxy and showed them every single weakness that they have and how they like to overcommit going forward and how when they overcommit, they leave people on islands and how those islands are defended by people who aren't necessarily up to snuff, and then it all goes down. I said that Daniel Sturridge and Nathan Smith look more like traffic cones than they did actual soccer players out there, and poor Nathan Smith. Literally, I think they ran 2 guys at him, 3 guys sometimes on that side every single time. And that kid, I'm sorry, I like him. I think he's going to be a good defender in the future for the LA Galaxy. But for right now, he's not equipped to handle that at all.
No. If we had AJ, maybe.
I don't even know if you can sink 3 guys on AJ over there and have it next to Daniel Sturridge with no defensive cover from your midfield, because you aren't getting João Pedro sliding over there and you aren't getting Roman Alessandrini sliding, because rightfully so, Roman Alessandrini is looking for goals because he's the only one who scores. So you need him to be forward. So there's just that, that's what you need to take out of this
Curtin,
game.
if you are listening,
Yeah.
I hope you're going to call Brian Schmetzer and take it right out of his playbook. This is how you beat the LA Galaxy. You have your plan for Saturday. You're welcome.
All right, here we go. Let's get some Brian Rowe post-game audio. So here's Mr. Rowe after the LA Galaxy's 3-0 loss, talking a little bit about how they weren't on the same page.
We just weren't on the same page out there. We weren't able to keep possession of the ball, able to move it. I mean, what they did to us in the first half is what we're able to usually do to teams, and that's kind of our game plan, is to keep possession and make teams chase and tire them out on a big field. But we were the ones that were defending the whole first half.
All right, there he goes. We were the ones defending the whole first half. Absolutely true. The LA Galaxy got almost run off the field. Seattle had, by the way, Wendy, one of those crazy stats that you don't see every time. In the final third, Seattle had an 83% pass completion rate in the final third. I believe Matt Doyle was saying that is the highest completion total since they've been keeping records basically in the final third. So it's like off the charts in there. So in the final third, where they're scoring, Seattle had an 83% passing success
So
rate.
we are setting records.
Setting records in futility every time they get out there. Yeah, so that's interesting. Also interesting that for the most part, Seattle had a couple more points possession at home. They outshot the LA Galaxy. All these things. All right, more Brian Rowe. He said Seattle made them look good.
I mean, it wasn't a good day for us in the first half, I would say.
Let's try that again. He meant that the Galaxy made Seattle look good. I mean, you would.
That's what he means.
I meant that. He said it. So here we go.
I mean, it wasn't a good day for us in the first half, I would say. We made them look good, and yeah, I mean, it's one that in the first half they dominated.
Yep, they did. Absolutely correct.
Okay, but see, let's compare this.
Okay.
Brian Rose just said, we made them look good. They dominated us. They completely controlled the game. When Cardinalfo gave his little post-game press conference, he said, if in the second half Gio had made his goal and we had gotten a goal back, then he thinks it would have all been different.
Yeah, he was talking about whenever he brought in Husidic and then Gio had a chance and then they countered and then they scored. Just a note, because somebody pointed this out to me. I did not see this during the game, but I did go back and check it, and so far the tape is absolutely 100% true. On the first Seattle goal, the LA Galaxy were playing with 10 guys. I didn't know that. Do you know who was off the field at that particular time getting his socks changed?
Who?
Giovanni Dos Santos.
Oh, I didn't even notice.
So that's what this person told me too. It's like I almost didn't notice. Apparently that's true. I went back and watched tape, and at no point, and there's a couple points where you can see all 11 players, or supposedly all 11 players. There's only 10, and Giovanni Dos Santos is nowhere to be found. I just think it's interesting. However that goes.
It's more interesting that I can't even tell when he's playing. That's not exactly fair. Sometimes he plays well, and he has at times. I don't want to be bitter, or I don't want to inflate things or say things that are exaggerations.
Right.
There are times when he plays well, but I also think that he has a tendency to disappear.
All right, I want to get to some of the CoG hotline calls as well after our Monday.
These should be good.
Well,
I want to hear these.
Well, you see, if you need to listen to the Monday show to get like the ones
I know
that
there's 100 minutes.
It
Josh.
was 100 minutes.
I listened to these podcasts on my way to and from work, and so I listened to Riot Squadcast today. I'll listen to yours tomorrow.
And it'll take you like 3 or 4 drives.
Yeah, it's going to take me at least a full day's commute.
Yeah, we didn't plan on that happening. By the way, it is one of our most listened to episodes so far. There's a lot of good information that Kevin pulls in there, so you want to pay attention to that Monday show if you didn't listen to it. It's still very relevant as we go. But these are calls. Some of these calls are talking to me and Kevin, but they're talking about having listened to the Monday show, and I want to get them now because they're irrelevant after the weekend and things change again. So let's go. We're gonna go to Andrew in Northridge.
We hope things change again.
Let's see how that works. All right, here we go.
Hey guys, this is Andrew from Northridge. So I'm driving home on the 405 listening to the podcast after the game, the little 99-minute marathon you guys did. I'm taking a couple of buddies of mine to the first Galaxy game they've ever been to this Saturday. And it crushes me that I have to explain to them, well, we're in a rebuilding period, and, the Galaxy are moving forward with younger talent, and, they're trying out new things. Here's something I've been battling with people on Reddit about. If our entire mentality as a team is to go younger and to come through the youth academy and to let Cardinalfo bring his guys into the system, let's talk about the 36-year-old journeyman that's sitting in the midfield. Jermaine Jones is a problem. He's a liability. He's an issue. Part of the reason why he receives so many yellow cards is because he's constantly tackling from being out of position. He pulls defenders into Joao Pedro's space. He is bunching up with the wingers and with the people who are attacking at the top of the box. It's a nightmare. It's an issue. Jermaine Jones has to go.
There we go, Jermaine Jones. I mean, listen, there's some great arguments about Jermaine Jones, and if you want to see him gone, And I mean, we're going to get into salaries here a little bit. So we'll save up the vitriol, Wendy, because I'm sure we can get into that a little bit. It's going to be fun. I want to go to Jack in Upland as well. Also left us a message on the COG hotline. Remember, you can call into the COG hotline anytime you want. 949-385-2641. Leave us a message. And if I think it's awesome, or if you're really, really angry and, you're upset and you're yelling, or maybe even crying, then you usually make the air. So here's Jack in Upland.
Hey, Josh, this is Jack calling from Upland, a long-time season ticket holder of the Galaxy, and one of those guys who even goes to the away games a lot. I just listened to your Monday show, and I get the kind of collective angst about how the team is doing. Certainly poor performance on Sunday. But I think for those of us who are longtime fans, we know that this is going to be a building year. We've got kind of a new way of looking at things with homegrown players, with a new coach. I guess what I'm looking for most of all this year, I don't expect we're going to win every game. In fact, if we make the playoffs, that probably will be success. But what I'm looking for is a plan. I'm looking for the coaching staff to be able to help us understand what the plan is for player development, team development. I haven't seen that plan yet. And the news conference where you had some clips from Kurt Adolfo the other day on Sunday was the most troubling, where there wasn't really an articulation of what we need to do to move forward. I think what we want to see, we want to see development, and we want to see progress. That may or may not be wins, but I think what's most troubling to us is we're not seeing that plan right now. So hopefully the front office and coaching staff can put that together and help us understand that. The other point is you look around the stands where my seats are, lots of empty seats, fewer lines to the snack bar. Losing has an effect, really does, on who comes to the game. But I think if they can put together a plan, articulate it, we can see it on the field, even if there aren't wins, I think you're going to keep the fan base. Anyway, thanks. Great show.
All right, there's Jack in Upland. Listen, you know what? That is one of the most reasoned, level-headed takes
I thought
I've
that was
heard.
very cogent.
Yeah, it was very, he's right. If there was a plan, if we could see something, that's why I think, in the other losses, Wendy, where I was like, hey, they were competitive a little bit, and you could see something, it's almost like, okay, there's something there. It's not there yet. I'm willing
Last
to give.
week we were talking, and I think we both had positive things to say, but the game this weekend was very different. It was that we were terrible. I mean, it's not. There's times when, like the Orlando game, we almost won. We shouldn't have been close to winning, but we were close to winning. There's definitely been, and there's a difference between when you play well but lose, which I've seen the Galaxy do before, and when you just play terribly. And we just played terribly on set. I mean, this weekend it was, as you said, we were not competitive.
No.
It was like we were watching the FA Cup and we were watching Chelsea play Wolverhampton Wanderers. We were watching teams that were leagues apart in terms of ability.
I said it whenever I watched, and you look at the talent that was available to the LA Galaxy, and I certainly think the Galaxy have some talented players. I mean, you have a U.S. men's national teamer in Gyasi Zardes, right? Ramon Alessandrini.
Talented players. They're just not playing well right now.
And nothing's clicking and nothing's happening, and you look at that. So I think they're talented. But whenever I looked over at Seattle and the talent that they had, I said these teams aren't close to each other. Realistically, right now, they're not close to each other. And that should be the scariest thing that you hear as an LA Galaxy fan, is that you're not competing with the top teams in the league. And Seattle, even though they were momentarily underneath the LA Galaxy in the standings, is a team that will be near the top at the end because they have the talent and they are competing at the upper levels of this league. The LA Galaxy right now, that they're not there. They're not even close to that.
I think that he made a really, really good point, which is that the fans would really just like to see that there is a coherent plan moving forward. And if there's evidence of that, then I think he's right. I think you keep the fan base. But if it's just chaos and there's no clear rhyme or reason to the decisions being made mid-game, and absolutely all the evidence points in the direction of the locker room abandoning the coach, then I don't know what you do with that.
I mean, that's the issue right now. It's not the results. It's the abandonment of the coach.
It's how they came about.
Yep, that is. And that's totally different than anything you should be expecting from this LA Galaxy team. You said that, Klein and Beckerman and all these guys have to be stewards of the LA Galaxy. They have this, the biggest club in Major League Soccer is the LA Galaxy, or at least it used to be. And them pretending that they are still that way right now is not helping, and they're not showing us a plan. Draw it out on a map, show us the plan, execute the plan. Plan your work your plan. Things would be okay. But this whole, we're still the LA Galaxy. We're obviously, we're just gigantic and we're huge and we're really good because we're the LA Galaxy. No, you're really good because Bruce Arena came in and constructed a dynasty team that was able to win 3 MLS Cups between the spans of 2009 and 2014. That's why
I always think it's so interesting. Like, for example, last year I was at a party with a bunch of lawyers, and everyone brought their spouses, and I was sitting at a table with all these lawyers, and one of the spouses who doesn't work and is a stay-at-home mom, she was telling everyone at the table, she said, I'm really smart. I studied art history at Stanford. And it's kind of like when I talk to you about my voice in the podcast, and I'm like, I want my voice to sound okay.
Right.
And it's almost like people are transparent with respect to their fears. When I hear someone at a dinner party say, I'm really, really smart, I just think to myself, oh, so you really don't think you're smart.
No, I swear, I'm smart.
And when I listen to Chris Klein and Pete Vianis say things like, we're the best, and we know what's going on. We know what we're doing. I just think to myself, oh, you don't know what you're doing.
If you ever see Pete Vianis walking around StubHub Center, which he does, and he walks around, if you see him without a phone in his hand and a phone up to his ear, please go up and say hi to him. All right, because I've never seen the man without a phone up to his ear, and I'm not quite sure that there's anybody on that phone line. All right, so I saw
Chris Klein at the StubHub Center this weekend. He is so tan. That man either has a tanning bed or he surfs all day long, because as a white dude, you do not get that kind of tan unless you are putting in hours in a tanning bed. That is a tan man.
He lives down. I think he lives down close to the beach, so I think you could probably.
He lays out. He lays out.
I would lay out if I lived probably in his neck of the woods too. So yeah. I'm not going to blame the guy for being tan. We'll blame the guy for trying to run.
I was impressed with his tan.
He wasn't on the phone. See, Chris will talk to people. He always will. I don't know if you're getting what you want from it, but he will talk to people. All right, we're going to move on now. If you want to call into the show, the phone lines are open now for you, 949-734-4217. That's 949-734-4217. Give us your thoughts on the game coming up, anything in between, as Wendy and I start to break down this salary info for you. There's not a lot of LA Galaxy news. The LA Galaxy versus Manchester United tickets now on sale to the general public, and I would say go out and get those tickets as soon as you can. Please do that, because I have my tickets for sale already, and I need you to sell that thing out so that way they will be worth something, so that way I can get my money for most of the season. All right? That's what I would like to happen, so please make that happen. All right? Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. All right. Player salaries, Wendy, the MLS Players Union, as they do twice a year, and I knew it was coming soon. I even said something, I think, on maybe even on the Monday show. I said it's going to come out, I think, in the next month. Basically, I was hoping it would be sooner, and it came out the next day. So that's good news. The LA Galaxy players and all the rest of the league's players had all of their salary information sort of put out there. Now, the front offices and the PR people are going to tell you that the salary information that comes out is not accurate. I've talked to people who would know whether it's accurate, and I get the sort of saying that it's pretty close, all right? So we're going to go with it. We're going to say that it's pretty close, and if it's pretty close, it's close enough. It's not like we're going to figure out a salary cap from these things, because you can't do that, all right? Just wanted to go over some numbers with you in terms of, senior minimums, reserve minimums, and salary budgets and everything else. The salary cap in 2017 is $3.845 million. Next year, it will be over $4 million. First time that's ever happened, all right? Your senior minimum, these are guys who are on the senior roster. The minimum they're allowed to make in 2017 is $65,000. It actually goes up to $67,500 in 2018. So if you're looking for that number and you see some of those numbers, sometimes they just give the person the reserve minimum for this year if there's a 2-year contract, if there's certain things that are met, or if they have to prorate it over a certain time. It don't get lost in it. It's not that important. And then, of course, we know the max budget charge that you can hit in the salary cap is $480,625, $486.25. If you are above that, you are either a designated player or you're using TAM to get paid down below that number, all right? That's kind of, those are the general things. The other thing that we can talk about real quickly is base salaries and guaranteed salaries. Don't worry about the guaranteed salaries as much because the explanation for it is so convoluted and ridiculous that it doesn't really matter all that much. Go with the base salaries. I'm pretty sure that's where the salary cap actually gets based, is off of the base salary. So pay attention to the base salaries, all right? All right, Wendy, we got the list.
Mm-hmm.
The highest paid LA Galaxy player base salary right now is $3.75 million. Giovanni Dos Santos, he got a $1.25 million raise from 1 year over the next. Now, Giovanni Dos Santos had a very good year last year. More than likely, I don't think he signed a new contract, so this was probably a built-in raise for him, which is probably the case for some of these guys, where it wasn't necessarily a reflection of what they did last year. It's more a reflection of that their contract had a bumped raise in it. You sign it to your contract, it's not necessarily for the same amount in both years. There will be a bump in salary sometimes for the second year, all right?
Yeah, and there could be performance triggers.
There could be performance triggers, which sort of goes into the guaranteed compensation. So guaranteed compensation for Giovanni Dos Santos, 5.5. Again, a $1.25 million raise there. He is the highest paid LA Galaxy player on the team. Coming in a paltry second, Romain Alessandrini, he is at $1.7 million basically in base salary and $1.9 million in guaranteed compensation for him. Just shy of $2 million. It's $1.999400. Okay, so if you're really paying attention there, I have no problems with that particular number at all, and it was sort of as reported, and it is what it is, so that's fine. Jelle Van Damme, the other designated player, he is not technically the third highest paid LA Galaxy player.
No.
But we knew that, right? We didn't know about.
No, we
didn't.
did not.
Okay, hold on
No.
a second. Stop
Jermaine
for a
Jones?
second. Give me a second. All right. So the third person on this in the designated player order, we knew that Van Damme was a very low-paid designated player because of the TAM that was going to come in and eventually buy him down if they wanted to go after that third. So that was what I meant with we knew that his salary wasn't high. But I had no idea that Jermaine Jones would be the third highest paid player on this LA Galaxy team right now, and his base salary is $600,000, the same amount he made with Colorado last year.
No,
and
it's more. He got a raise.
No, he didn't. The base salaries are the
he
same.
did.
The base salaries are the same. The guaranteed compensation.
After a year in which he tore his ACL and played 9 games for his team, he got a raise.
He got a raise in guaranteed compensation. His base salaries are the same, both at $600,000. It's guaranteed. Yeah.
Did everyone hear me? Is everyone listening? After a year in which a 35-year-old player tore his ACL, missed 4 months due to injury, and only played 9 games for his team, he got a raise.
The $72,500 bump in the guaranteed compensation is there. I never thought he would even approach $600,000. I thought even if the Galaxy were crazy, it would be in the $450 to $500. Hey, it just shows that they are that crazy. So $600,000.
His agent is doing well.
Yeah.
I would like to extend my congratulations to Jermaine Jones' agent. Well done.
A good negotiator. He is selling his house as well, so lots of stuff there. I think he will actually make a good
profit. I think probably he'll make on that. California real estate being what it is.
That's right. All right, so we go from Jermaine Jones, which is just ludicrous, to Gyasi Zardes. Gyasi Zardes also getting a rather significant raise whenever you figure it out. Also a TAM player. His base salary $577,500. That is up from his base in $472 last year. $472,500. He made a raise of $105,000. All right.
Yeah, Gyasi needs to score some goals this year.
He does. It actually raises the question for me, Wendy, is when are the LA Galaxy not going to be able to afford to keep him anymore? And with that number now, we are approaching a number that is almost impossible to keep. So he needs a score so that way the LA Galaxy can sell him. If that's how they're going to do it.
Yeah, he said, because I don't think anyone's going to buy him for that.
Not right now. Not right now. Ashley Cole comes in next at $350,000. Ashley Cole also gets a raise, about $50,000 across the board for him. That was probably a built-in contract raise, is my guess. He was $300,000 last year, $350,000 this time. His guaranteed compensation also goes up in the $50,000 range, so you're right there. And again, I think that was a contract thing. That doesn't seem like they went out and renegotiated it, although there were questions about whether or not Ashley Cole was going to come back this year, if he was going to retire or not. Anyway, the $50,000 raise, we'll put it in there. If you're going by just the numbers and you're not paying any attention to things that I write or things that we tell you, then Jack McInerney would be the next highest paid player on the LA Galaxy at $325,000. And in reality, he is the next highest paid LA Galaxy player. Jack McInerney will earn $325,000. He got a raise from last year. Again, this had to have been a built-in contract bump. A $55,000 raise. He was $270 in 2016 and $325 right now. Okay, don't panic. The LA Galaxy are only paying him the senior minimum, and they're only paying him the $67.5. The league is picking up the rest of that. That's one of those guaranteed contract league things that gets all crazy because Major League Soccer is, all the players sign contracts with the league and not with teams. This is one of those things that happens. So, I mean, Jack McInerney is literally robbing people with what he is making right now. The guy has 43 MLS goals, Wendy, but at 325 and a guy who was on the bench for Portland, interesting that he's making that much money. So the LA Galaxy, again, only picking up $67.5 on that, which is actually a very nice deal. I have zero issues with that once you learn it. I know everybody was freaking out there for a little while. But we'll see how Jack McInerney is able to get into this. Any other numbers that stick out for you, Wendy, as you look at any of this?
I was going to say, I don't know if it's that unreasonable that Jack McInerney earns $325 when Robbie Rogers is earning $233 to not play soccer.
Yeah, right now that is absolutely the case. $233,500 in the guaranteed compensation. It's an adjustment rounding error in terms of how much more you got. $5,000 more in a year-over-year increase. And that's contract, and the LA Galaxy got cap relief from that. So, he's making money. He got injured.
Did we get cap relief? Because he hasn't announced that he's retiring yet.
We have nothing official, although if people sort of know, he's going to be placed on the season-ending injury list. All right, and that will give the LA Galaxy cap relief, and that will also make sure that he still gets paid during this season. So that way, he can recover, he gets all those things. And my guess, and everybody has theorized this, Robbie Rogers is not coming back ever. It's not happening. It doesn't look like that's ever going to happen, and that's been sort of the unknown thing for a while here. But it's been the unknown known thing for a while, at least for most reporters and questions we asked. It seems like that's the case. So Robbie Rogers not going to be counting against the cap once he goes officially on the season-ending injury list. That should have happened last week. MLS is just slow with this stuff, so that's sort of it. Baggio Husidic makes more than Joao Pedro. I didn't think I saw that coming. Quite honestly, I didn't think I saw, you talk about the transfer fee, which is separate from this, right? So it's $1.5 million or around that number is what we've been told. But Joao Pedro only makes $120,000 or $141 in guaranteed compensation. That's like paltry money. For me, this also means this all of a sudden means that you don't need to play him anymore. It's sort of like, well, you
just need to be a starter.
Yeah, I'm like, well, you didn't pay him that much money, but it is the $1.5 million that's that they use TAM to get because the press announcement has that in there and all that.
This
stuff.
is all about the fact that I don't see how Chris Klein can turn to his bosses and say, I spend $1.5 million for a player who's not worth anything, and I don't know how to say I'm sorry.
I don't know how to. Maybe with a song. Perhaps a song would be best. Anyway, all of these numbers are up on our website. Go to cornerofthegalaxy.com and you can see sort of my quick analysis and dirty. Mostly it's to give you guys access to the numbers so that way you can see where they're at. Now, what we're going to do next week is we're going to come to all of your workplaces, find out how much you make compared with all your people, and then release that into the wild and see how that goes, right?
I can't wait to see Josh's W-2.
Oh, it was not good this year, all right? The government won this time, all right? The government won. So,
the House always wins.
Isn't that the case? All right, LA Galaxy schedule, and then we're going to get on to previewing this game. We're running out of time, so want to make sure we do this, and my wife made sure that I'm going to pick her up from the airport, and if I'm late, then I won't get to do podcasting anymore, so we're going to make sure that happens. LA Galaxy schedule, obviously, Saturday against Philadelphia, then Saturday, the last home game of the 3-home game stretch against the Chicago Fire, Juninho, Dax McCarty, and, of course, Bastian Schweinsteiger coming in. And by the way, for those, Kevin and I talked about Juninho. Juninho was an allocation coming back. Right, so the LA Galaxy were not on that allocation list, or at least not in front, and there were 3 teams on the allocation list, and all 3 teams wanted him. So the first person,
of course they did. He's wonderful.
Of course, so Chicago got him, and that's how he went. So I'm sure if the LA Galaxy were at the top of that allocation list, which they weren't because they finished third in the Western Conference, they were more in the middle of the pack. They might have had a chance on that. Anyway, so Chicago, then away to New York, the Red Bulls, and then away to Minnesota, and then away to San Jose. That starts the game in New York starts a 4-game road trip for the LA Galaxy, except it won't really be a road trip because they always come home and then they'll fly back out again. But nonetheless, 4 games away from StubHub Center. You don't want to know where the LA Galaxy sit in terms of standings. It's not good.
It's not good.
20th overall in the league. There are 22 teams in the league. The LA Galaxy sit just 3 positions from the absolute bottom, with just 6 points, having played 7 games. So they are less than a point a game right now.
Worst beginning to any season in franchise history.
Yeah, I think so. I thought there was one that was worse in 2003.
2003? Was it worse?
Might be. I don't know. It was close. Kevin.
Hard to imagine.
Kevin pulled those stats for me. I was looking at that. So anyway, the good news for the LA Galaxy is, of course, their opponent Philadelphia is in 22nd place out of 22 teams. So
you're saying there's a chance.
That's right. The one game you get to watch. We always do MLS games to watch. The one game you have to watch, Wendy, is the game where the LA Galaxy's next two opponents. They're playing each other. The New York Red Bulls will host the Chicago Fire 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, so 4:30 Pacific Time on MLS Live if you want to watch that, and you can see the Galaxy's next two opponents. So there you go. All right, we're going to do something a little different now. I went out, and I had some fun, and I got something cool, and so we're going to try to do this game preview a little bit more jacked up than we normally do. So, Wendy, if you're ready, I'm ready, and I'm going to start. You have no idea this is coming, but this is. I think you're going to enjoy this. Are you ready?
Great.
All right, here we go. Your LA Galaxy will face off against the Philadelphia Union on Saturday, April 29th. It's a 7:30 p.m. Pacific kickoff time. The game can be found on Spectrum Sportsnet and Spectrum Deportes. You're going to have Joe Tutino, Kobe Jones, and Kelly Tennant on the call. So if you're not going to come to the stadium, if you're protesting with your seat, I understand. Watch it on Spectrum Sportsnet. That's where you can find it. The last time these two teams met, the LA Galaxy are usually victorious, actually. That's what we should say. The LA Galaxy are 2-5-0 with 6 points, 7 games played, 10th in the Western Conference, 20 out of 22 teams. They are way down at the bottom right now. Philadelphia is in worse position, 0-4-3, 3 points, 7 games played, 11th in the East Coast, dead last in the league, 22 of 22. And Philadelphia's last game, they gave up 3 goals after being up 3-0. They were at home. They allowed 3 unanswered goals for a 3-3 draw at home. They almost got their first win of the season. As we've been saying, they have not won a game all year. And quite honestly, it could be Jim Curtin's last game if the LA Galaxy can come out victorious for that. There's lots of interesting notes on this. Obviously, we talked about not having the win. The LA Galaxy themselves have lost 5 of their first 7 games, have lost 3 of their last 4 home games, and the LA Galaxy's 3 losses at home match all home losses from 2015 and 2016 combined. Your first meeting in MLS now between Jelle Van Damme and Nguchi Onyewu. This is obviously going back to an incident that we're going to talk a little bit more about here in just a second. The Union haven't won at StubHub Center since July 4th of 2012 when Jack McInerney, who was with the Philadelphia Union, scored for Philadelphia to shock the Galaxy. The LA Galaxy are 4-1-0 at home versus Philadelphia. They've scored 14 goals, 5 goals against. And the LA Galaxy are 6-1-2 all-time against Philadelphia, scoring 22 goals and 9 goals against. This is a very important game for both teams as they try their best to not be the worst team in Major League Soccer. Because if somebody loses this game, in all likelihood, that's where they're going to be. So again, a Saturday kickoff, 7:30 p.m. at StubHub Center. Hopefully everybody will be out there to do this. All right, Wendy, we're talking about this game now. Was that fun? Did we enjoy that?
Oh, is that the Gladiator soundtrack?
No, I went out and found some awesome music that I can actually use without getting sued. It's wonderful. And so I scoured the internet for that. I enjoyed that. That was fun for me.
Oh, buddy, you know if you get sued, you can always call me.
I know. I tell people that all the time. I'm like, I got this. Don't worry about that. Anyway, so we talk about this. It is the game of futility. I think that if Curtin Alpha loses this game to a team that hasn't won all year, that is as bad as the Philadelphia Union are, Wendy, he's gone. And I think that would be crazy.
I actually think that they would give him a little bit more.
They may, but I feel like this would go a long way. I do not think that's going to happen, by the way. I actually think the LA Galaxy win this game. It's one of those. Kevin and I were talking the week before, and we were all like, big win against Philadelphia. You're going to be okay there.
Right. Against a team that hasn't won in a year.
That's right. They have. Oh man, they are horrible. And right now the LA Galaxy are right behind them for being as bad. I mean, Minnesota United is in between these two teams. The one thing that I wanted to say about this Jelle Van Damme and Nguchi Onyewu, do you know the incident that I'm talking about?
Yes, I'm well familiar with this accusation that Jelle Van Dam committed racial abuse against him.
Yes, and so this could be their first meeting, although Gooch has not started for the Philadelphia Union in the last 2 games, so I wouldn't expect him realistically to start in this game either. So you sort of look at that. Listen, they have some talented players. CJ Sapong is scoring goals for them. Alberg scored some goals in their last game as well. They were very good offensively against a poor Montreal team. The LA Galaxy actually beat the Montreal Impact. Granted, again, the only wins the LA Galaxy have on the year, Wendy, are against teams that went down to 10 men. But I do not believe that you're actually going to see Jelle Van Dam and Gooch go up against each other. So, I mean, if you wanted to see the fireworks from that, if you're interested in that angle, I don't think that's going to happen. But it's going to be... Listen, this is the train wreck game, Wendy. I sort of said it beforehand.
Right.
I am
This is like you just want a spectacle.
I do. It's a 3-ring circus. I want to see the fireworks. I want to see everything. It's a 7:30 game on a Saturday night. It doesn't get much better than that for LA Galaxy fans. I mean, I expect that there won't be that many people at this game because the Galaxy have been so bad, despite the fact that they said that they had 25,000 people at the last game. I want
to see a bare-knuckle brawl between Jim Curtin and Kurt Onalfo. Enough of this soccer business.
Right,
I want these 2 embattled coaches to take the field in Roman gladiator outfits and just set tigers loose in the field and let them duke it out.
So give everybody your prediction then. What is going to happen in this game? Do the LA Galaxy survive this one?
I think that fate dictates that the Galaxy have to win because Philadelphia has not won in months and months. They are terrible, and they're playing away.
Yes.
Even if the Galaxy are shambolically bad, you have to think that we beat Philadelphia.
It could be the roulette principle, and this is my roulette principle. There's not actually one, but whenever I go to Vegas and I'm betting on the outside against red and black, and I'm like, it's been black for the last 5. It's going to be red eventually, right? And so then you bet on red, and then it's black again, and so you're like, no, now this time for sure, it's definitely going to be red, and you bet on red again, and it's black again, and then you keep going again, and you're like, I know for sure, and then you're like, oh, if it's going to be black every time, that's fine, and then you move it over to black, and it's red. So that's the roulette principle that I have here. I just don't know. For this team, they were supposed to have a response against Seattle, and there was 0 response, and there was a horrible game plan, and everything fell apart. They're supposed to have a response for Philadelphia. I don't know, and I don't know that anybody can trust this team to have any sort of coherent response, and I'm not sure that they still want to play for Kurt Onalfo, and I think if they know that there's a possibility that he gets sent on the road if they don't win. I don't know if they're professionals. I don't think they do it, but in the back of their head, there might be, this game could just go badly and then we could get a new coach and maybe that would solve all our problems. Players don't want to get blamed.
Listen, players, I hope you guys have enough of a sense of integrity that you realize that there's people who earn, minimum wage jobs, who save up money to go to Galaxy games. There's people who really, this investment is substantive to them in terms of what they sacrifice financially, in terms of time and commute. Even if you absolutely cannot stand Kurt Onalfo, I hope that you guys have enough professional acumen that you are going to put forth your best effort for this fans.
I mean, that's it. This is it. This is all the sort of eggs in a basket. And some people will say that would be an overreaction for the Galaxy to fire Kurt Onalfo. I think it's a realistic possibility, and I wouldn't have said that 2 or 3 weeks ago, Wendy. So things have changed that much, and I think that they are on that much of a tipping or teetering point that this game is significant.
I'm surprised to hear you say that.
It's only because, and I always reserve this right, and if I'm not changing my opinion on what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing from people, and I do an extensive job. I know you guys don't think I do, but I do an extensive job of talking to people behind the scenes. I have lots of people I get to talk to. I know when there's a good training and a bad training and everything else in between. I can find that out very quickly, very easily, and I don't even need to be there. All right? So I know these things that are coming right now, okay? And I can tell you that this team right now is disheartened and they're somber and they're upset the way things are going. Yeah, they're frustrated. And you can hear it in every single player's voice afterwards where I don't know what went wrong. I don't know is a very easy cover for I know exactly what went wrong. I'm not going to throw any under the bus.
I'm just not telling you.
Right? I mean,
Josh, I think everyone who listens to the podcast thinks you do a very diligent job.
No, I'm too positive on the Galaxy. I'm a homer.
Right. I'm the baddie, you're the goodie.
Yes,
right.
Exactly. Except that I just said that I think, and this is not me calling for Kurt Onalfo's firing. I'm telling you what I think could be a possible reaction if the LA Galaxy lose to Philadelphia. And if it doesn't happen against Philadelphia, don't think the pressure is going to be off against Chicago. They'll have to win that game too. I think that this is a very interesting point. If they can string a couple wins together, then they go on the road for 4 games, Wendy. The LA Galaxy are not a good road team. They're not a good home team right now. So all those things combined could be very, very interesting.
What does it mean if you're not a good road team or a good home team?
It means you're not a good team. That's what it means. That's what it means. All right, Wendy, why don't you go ahead and tell people where they can find you, and we will get on out of here.
You can find me at cornerofthegalaxy.com and American Soccer Now, and on Twitter at Bard's Blonde.
And if you're looking for me on Twitter, it's at Guesman, JGUESMAN, and at Galaxy Podcast, where you can find us there. Go to cornerofthegalaxy.com, where you can find all of my writing. We had a great article by Andy Smith. Andy, a contributing writer for us, throughout 5 ways to fix the LA Galaxy midfield. Some interesting theories in there. Make sure you check it out. LA Galaxy, Philadelphia Union, 7:30 p.m. on Saturday. Hopefully I'll see people out there. I'm going to be out there. You can be out there. And if you're not out there, I hope you're watching on television. All right. For Miss Wendy Thomas, I'm Josh Guesman, and you've been listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast. And be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. And for all of your independent LA Galaxy news, discussion, and entertainment, including this podcast, head on over to cornerofthegalaxy.com. Fans, thanks for listening. We ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye, everybody.